Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Film Frauds, or myself, Matt, and my co-host, Mark
Hello.
and Tyler.
Hello.
Providing completely unprofessional, 100% biased opinions on movies of today, tomorrow, and last year. Yesteryear, last year.
I thought that was intentional.
No, it was intentional, actually.
Yeah.
And this is
Okay.
the
Yes.
last episode of Film Frauds, so, with something that we're talking about. And that
Yeah.
movie is 2004's Downfall, which
Yep.
is a German film following the final days of the Third Reich, the final days of Adolf Hitler in Berlin in the bunker as the Soviet Union is invading and about to take the city. And I saw this movie 1 year ago, and for anyone who doesn't know, that this movie is like the Hitler reacts to YouTube video, like Hitler
Yeah.
reacts to Red Wedding, Hitler reacts to what have you. This is the actual movie, and I watched this movie a year ago because I have a very like politically distant fascination with Adolf Hitler. I think like the story itself and how like this is fascinating is something that people should learn from. And this movie I think does a really good job handling what wait, I'm kind of going all over the place. So I saw this movie a year ago, and then I watched this movie again this year because I wanted to watch it again. So I'm the one who's seen it twice, and I think this movie is phenomenal in many ways that we'll get into. But I want to hear what you guys have to say because this is both of your first times watching it. So, Mark, what did you think of Downfall?
It's hard. It's hard to articulate my thoughts because it's like it's an exhausting film.
Yeah,
It very much so exhausts you, and by the end, you feel that. I think what's one of the most miraculous things about the film is you feel trapped yourself in Berlin. You feel stuck in that bunker with the presiding officers of the Nazi Party, and it's I think one thing that I really picked up on was like you don't see the faces of the Russian soldiers, or you see them from a distance,
yeah,
but they're always like sort of like hovering on the fringes. And I think that was just an excellent tactic of enforcing that claustrophobia. It's a very claustrophobic film because that iconic scene that you were just talking about, the one that everybody knows, that's
yeah.
been memed to all hell. That's like in a very small room. These very small rooms, tight camera angles, and everything, and it's just filled with
Yeah,
people. And then the next room is even more filled, and people
yeah,
are crying, and there's just a whole range of emotions, and everyone's visibly sweating,
yeah,
and it is the best way I can describe this film is that it's just effective. It's
yes,
very effective, um, and and yet it doesn't. I think you mentioned this before. I think when you watched it for the first time a year ago, which I still remember when you watched it because you had such a visceral reaction to it. You're like, this was just mind blowing. Like
yeah.
I distinctly remember you saying that, and I can't believe it was a year ago now. That's crazy.
I know.
But it doesn't glorify anything. It just sort of has this apathetic, uh, narrative sequence of actual events done in masterfully, and I praise the movie. I think it's. I don't think I'd watch it for a very very long time,
Yeah,
but it sets out what it wants to do, and pretty much nails it at every turn, I think.
yeah. Tyler, what did you think of Downfall?
So I said before, I was like, Matt, I'm going to compliment you. And here's the compliment. Matt, you have a damn good taste in movies at times.
Yeah.
This is like an incredible movie.
Yeah,
I was kind of blown away because I think this movie comes and goes. I think it took a while for it to click with me, but there was a certain part where I just like unfoundedly respected what this movie was going for. And Mark, you mentioned that it kind of takes this apathetic tone. I actually think it takes a completely opposite tone, at least when it comes to like Hitler itself. It kind of treats like it does like the Once Upon a Time in Hollywood thing, where it kind of treats Hitler as like this farce. Like you expect like this powerful, like giant man, and he's like this whittling buffoon of a joke who like the movie doesn't even. So spoilers: Hitler kills
Well, it's based
himself.
on actual
It's
events.
just an actual event, but the thing is, like, the movie builds up his death and then doesn't show it, plays it off screen, and his body's burned. And he kills himself 45 minutes with 45 minutes left of the movie. There is
Mhm.
something so like profoundly effective about a lot of this stuff, and I think I'm just going to end up echoing what you guys said, where like it doesn't feel like a movie about like individual people, but rather like the impact of like state propaganda and like words and influence that has on people. The fact that like we get a massive expose into people who are almost seemingly ignoring the end and willing to basically kill themselves for this false idol and false cause is like the most fascinating part of the movie to me. I think it would be an understatement to say that Bruno Ganz's
Yeah.
performance as Hitler is like it's one of the best like examples of acting like you've ever seen. Like like there's no overacting despite him yelling all the time. It's just like
Yeah.
it's one of those performances that just like you're like if they I feel like they like resurrected Hitler for that move like that role. It's like
Yeah.
it feels
He was
like it's
like born to play Hitler. Like
it,
that's
it's a horrible thing to
What a
say.
compliment.
It's
Yeah.
but it really like absolutely like but he's also by the way he's in Nosferatu the Vampire. He's
he's one of the dudes.
he's the
like-
dude who goes to the castle.
Oh, he's the
He's
the
Bruno.
dude.
He's Bruno. He goes to. I looked him up. I was like, I have to watch more of his movies. And I was like, Nosferatu the Vampire. I was like, is he the vampire? I was like, no,
Wow.
that's Klaus Kinski. No, this like I don't think it could be understated how much this movie like was effective. There was a certain point, Matt, you got me to like praise a movie where a group of children die horrifically.
Yeah.
To be fair, I did just fast forward those scenes. As soon as I saw what was happening, I just clicked like, okay, and it's over. I did
Well, it's the
click
children of Goebbels.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I was good. And I did accidentally stop fast forwarding a kid like struggling to breathe and get forced down
Yeah.
the throat. I'm like, I'm good. This is enough for me.
Yeah.
I can't speak. I have so much to say about this movie, but also I'm kind of exasperated at how to say it.
Yeah.
It's a phenomenal movie, just like all the way around.
I think I would say it's a bit apathetic. I would lean more towards it's apathetic. It really does feel like the modern day Germans are like sort of peering back into history and just like looking at just this dark period and just putting it out on the screen and showing like what went down and it shows you like you're talking about the state propaganda and everything. It sort of gives you like a really good idea of like how serious and effective it was at that time period. And I think it's miraculous in that effect.
Yeah, I would actually agree with Mark more. I think it's more apathetic. I think this is just how it was. Like there's no I didn't really get the feeling that Hitler was a farce because like this is just at this point he's suffered so like there's like this weird delusional aspect of him, but also the fact that like there's this internal battle of him like the wanting to think everything's gonna be okay with also the realistic aspect of yes, the Soviets are literally on our doorstep and they're going to kill me. So like I just think that all those years of political battles is finally like coming to a head and this is completely and he's when he walks he's all hunched over and in his hand I think he has like Parkinson's is moving
something like that
and he's in like a constant like psychological battle between himself and with his people of do we believe him, do we take our chances and leave. But just for a little historical context, the story follows Treadel Jung. I don't know, it's a German name, but who was Hitler's secretary. And this is based off of a book of her accounts. And speaking of what Mark was saying earlier, a German retrospective of World War II and the Holocaust, like there's that great interview at the beginning and at the end of the movie with the real life historical figure of her saying like, like I didn't know what was going on, but at the same time, like I can't say I can blame my ignorance. Like I am responsible for this.
I think she says like youth isn't ignorance, basically like that.
Yeah, youth isn't ignorance, and
which is a theme in the movie. With the young.
I want to go more into that because I think German because with this and there's this great TV show Netflix. It's this German TV show called Babylon Berlin, which is like the most expensive non-American TV show in production right now, and that has to do a lot with German German retrospective observing themselves during this time period, and it's such an interesting element because there's like the acceptance of the atrocities, but also like this weird nebulous area. It's like, well, we technically didn't do it, but I kind of want to go into more of that. Like, what do you think of like the Germans portrayed in Downfall, like apart from Hitler in this movie?
I mean, I think I think there's a definite like it does a nice job of showing the juxtaposition between two sides, those loyal to Hitler and Germany and those who are more aware. And that's where I found the movie to be like inherently just far more fascinating. And I don't want to get into like modern day politics, but I watched this like framing it from like a modern political perspective, being like, what kind of common trends do we see? And I find that inherently just more fascinating. But the focus on like, there is still this like undoubted like air of not respect, but just like like this is who they were. Like it's like unfiltered. It's like these people who are almost like brainwashed until the end. Like you have the diplomat. And he's like, you
Yeah.
have internet diplomat who even like, I'm gonna kill myself. Like as soon as it's like we've surrendered, shoots himself in the head. And you're just like, you're
Yeah.
like the conditioning that goes into that is utterly fascinating. You have the
Mhm.
people, a lot of great sequences in the bunker are just characters looking defeated. Then they go behind a door, close the door, and they shoot themselves.
Yeah.
And then you're like, or just like when you're in like the medical bay and some guy like looks up and just shoots himself and you're like, what the you're like, how do you get to this point? And it's
Or Germans shooting other Germans for being caught trying to desert.
exactly, or even calling them traitors, and like while the Soviets are like at their door, they're hanging them.
Yeah.
And you're like, it's just like there's this also, not to like branch too much away, but there's this, I loved the sequences of awarding Medal of Honors and like dilapidated, destroyed areas.
It's
Like
completely meaninless at this
it's
point.
completely
Yeah.
Hitler when he gives the like the Medal of Honors to like the young soldiers, and it's just like
Yeah.
in this destroyed, barren thing. Or when they're literally in the medical bay and people are dying around them, he's like, the Medal of Valor for you and for
Yeah.
you. And
Yeah.
then someone shoots themselves, and you're just like, it's an utterly fascinating movie about the human condition, but also the impact that society has on these people. And the corruption of youth is also a massive theme in there. It's just like there's so many like interwoven different fabrics of this. You can tackle this from so many different perspectives. It's incredible.
Yeah.
What's that quote from the from Voltaire? It's the if you can get people to believe absurdities, you can get them to commit atrocities.
Yeah.
That famous quote. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not new, and me applying that to the situation, but yeah, I agree with what you said, Tyler. And I think what was interesting is, and this permeates to every single character in the film, and it's the pervasive advancement of the Soviets as they get the 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 area of Berlin that the Nazis control gets smaller and smaller and smaller, and the people get more and more sweaty. The rooms get smaller and smaller, and it's more people are dying, and it's like
Bombs get closer.
Yeah.
the whole film is like crushing in on itself, and you see
Yeah.
it in the characters, and then you get that catharsis of just everybody dying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like literally killing themselves. It's just this explosion, and it's incredible to see how that these unknown forces, well, I mean, in the context of the film, you don't see them just
Yeah.
crushing everybody into this bunker, and then they're in self combusting.
So another great part about what you just said is the Russians as an unknown force, but when you finally see them at the end, all of a sudden they're just as worn out and beaten as everyone else. Like they don't immediately see the surviving group of like Nazis. They don't immediately start shooting them. They just kind of look at them and they're just like, we're like, you lost. We're done.
Yeah.
We're not. There's no more. Then they're people, and then you walk through the crowds and they're dancing and celebrating, and you're like, oh yeah, this is like a multi-front war. Like what's happening inside is what's happening outside.
And I think what's even more effective about that scene is you've spent this entire film with the Germans.
Yep.
And the culture of the Nazi party, and then the second like the Russians come in and like they steamroll, and then they start celebrating, and they're like doing their own like dances from their culture. It feels even more alien to you because you've been with the Germans the whole time, and it's like you almost see it through their eyes, and
yeah, you're like waiting for the shoe to drop. You're waiting for them to just start massacring everyone, but they never do.
No, not that's not what I'm trying to say. I'm just trying to say like they're dancing, and like their language and their culture feels even more alien after being in this boiling pot of the bunker.
And the warning with the stare too, when it's like, don't look any of the any of the Russians in the eyes, and then you look at the guy in the eye, and it feels like you're not even looking at a person. You're just like, what? Like, what is this person thinking? Like, I just made eye contact with them. What's going to happen? And it's like something you wouldn't, like, you made eye contact with some random person in the street, you wouldn't, be afraid. But, like that, like the myth of when you're dealing with an actual, like, with an enemy combatant, that's like brings it to a whole nother scale. And there's also like this weird, like, we talked about like people being typically either being like still blindly loyal to Hitler or becoming disillusioned as the movie goes along. But there's also like elements of Germans just helping other Germans. I think of like the doctor who's like trying to get like morphine and penicillin to different areas where like in the front lines where the Germans are fighting. Like that guy was more like a morally, right character. And the secretary, even though, she's Hitler's secretary and is seeing all this stuff, she's not, I still kind of found her to be a sympathetic character, as someone who's just kind of like collateral damage in a way. Like she doesn't, she's just kind of stuck there and she doesn't really have any other options. And then there's like the little boy too, who becomes disillusioned and helps people escape from the front lines or whatever. Who was at the beginning of the novel, at the beginning of the book, was like a an ardent Hitler supporter, and he got the medal at the beginning of the movie too, and all that stuff. I think is interesting. It's the movie is just so like profoundly complex. It's like one of the most like complex from like a character standpoint. Like every character. Every main character in the movie could have their own like psychological analysis.
Yeah.
Especially Goebbels and Goebbels' wife. Like
and Hitler's wife.
Who?
Hitler's wife too.
Yeah. Eva Braun is a very interesting character. Like we can get more to her later, but from like just like the regular normal people, like you get the sense of unity where it's like we're just in the shitty situation regardless of how loyal you still are to the Nazi cause. Like we're kind of all in this together. We're going to help each other survive.
Yeah. Can I throw out this point? One movie was a casualty of this movie for me, and that's Jojo Rabbit.
Jojo Rabbit is, I'm gonna give that movie half a star now. Just I'm gonna rewatch it.
Listen,
you hate that movie so much more.
I don't hate. I've never like disliked it. I do, but the thing is, like, you watch it and you're like, I don't know if I could watch like satirical take on like this kind of stuff now, having watched. Like it was like I finished it. I'm like, my first thought was like, I don't feel like watching Jojo Rabbit again. I was like, I'm good. I do think like there's a lot of like just wonderful. I don't like. I feel like we're even like skipping over some excellent stuff. The framing of this movie, we've talked about like the close proximity to bunkers, the amount of like close-up shots that are done, but even the framing of Hitler, he's literally never taller than anyone in this movie.
No.
He's even close in size to the children. Anytime he walks into a room, every single person towers over him. It's this wonderful,
there's always like downward looking shots of him.
Yeah, and it's just like he looks like this like runt of a being, and you're just like it puts this like it really the movie treats the audience with an incredible amount of respect. One, it doesn't do a lot of like this is what's happening. It puts you in the end.
This is bad.
This is bad. This is how it's impacted. It literally puts you at the end and goes, you'll figure it out by the people.
It's literally a hard cut. It's literally 2 years prior. Hey, we're gonna meet the chancellor. This is so cool. Hard cut, bomb exploding in Berlin. Everything's in chaos.
And you have to respect a movie that just goes like, you'll figure it out. Like you're along for this. You're either like with it or you're not. If you're not, like it's just not for you. And the treatment of like Hitler, I still can't like the Bruno Ganz performance is still like left me mesmerized for a little bit. But even like it's just the added benefits of just how they frame him and how he's constantly like he leaves the room and everyone starts like making fun of him. And like immediately like starting like, okay, we're not gonna do that. It's like this constant push down. And then the ultimate, like the best part of the movie for me is when he dies off screen. Because I think that culminates in everything that I loved about it, where it's just like, it doesn't matter. He's a farce at this point, and his death is a farce.
He's too much of a coward to actually surrender. He'd rather die and keep his men fighting than to actually face the Soviets himself.
Exactly. And then
it's especially my first time watching it. Were you guys? I mean, this is gonna sound kind of weird, but like, isn't Hitler such a villain? Because like you get like these scenes of people being like, we have to die for that. I feel bad. I always feel bad for that young female soldier who's fighting the Soviets, and then she asks like the guy to kill her, to shoot her, and she does the salute right before she dies. And it's like all these people who are they're fighting for a bad cause, but to them this is the cause they need to fight for, because Hitler's convinced them to believe it, and they're giving their lives for it. And Hitler hard cuts of these scenes of Hitler in the bunker saying like, oh, clearly they're not fighting hard enough. This cause is worth more than any life. And you get so frustrated by how delusional and how out of touch he is, because people are literally killing themselves for him, and he's not, and there's not like the slightest ounce of gratefulness from him.
Yeah. And I mean,
he like died by his own propaganda. Like none of them could see a world without like the Third Reich or whatever, their vision of it. It was like, it was, if that can't succeed, then we might as well just die, because there's no possibility of anything else happening. And it went all the way to the top. It went all the way to the top.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
I mean, the idea of like, I mean, it's a lot just like great, like this movie is like a constant, like putting out one thing and then immediately like juxtaposing it with something. Like you get these human things, like people not in the bunker. And then all of a sudden you get a conversation with Hitler. He's like, we have to evacuate the people. He's like, let him die. And you're like, I know exactly what it's like. You can the movie is rather transparent in what it's doing, but not in a bad way. It's pretty like it's kind of like the Spike Lee lack of subtlety, where it's like this is we're purposely like juxtaposing it to like put influence on the audience to be like Hitler was not like this is our attempt at humanizing Hitler, but look, he's not like he's still a horrible, horrible, despicable person. Even our attempts at human, like he's like having like emotional moments are still like bookended by like exasperation and then like kill all the people. It's like
Yeah,
you
by
get this
just
moment.
complete selfishness.
Yeah,
And
it's
then
like
like
it's this roller coaster of like treating the
yeah.
audience and being like, no, like maybe no, you're an idiot for even
Yeah, and
thinking
then just
that.
to briefly talk about like from a directing standpoint, we talked about how he's usually shorter than everyone. The
Mhm.
one time you get like a full frame shot of him, and he's literally looking in the camera, and he says, "In 24 hours, people will be cursing my name." And that's when he shuts the bunker for the last time, and
Yeah,
that's the last shot of him. That was a great directing choice, in my opinion. And then to further emphasize the fact that this allegedly like holier than thou figure doesn't have like a holier than thou death. He's literally thrown into a muddy bunker,
yeah,
like quickly set on fire, and they try to have a ceremony from that, but then bombs fall and everyone runs away. And
yeah,
like this figure that everyone's killing themselves for, just that's it. Like that's the end of it. He dies.
yeah,
He dies in the mud, and that's
yeah.
like it's almost like beautiful in how like how like morbid it is,
That
especially with how
Yeah.
selfish he's been.
that's
Mhm.
when the movie clicked for me, and that's when I also like fell in love with the movie. When I paused it, and was like, man, I only have 15 minutes left. That was fast, and then it was like 48. I
Wait,
was
you
like,
paused it at that time?
well, when he died and they all ran inside, and I was like, because I wanted a moment to like be like,
He had to look up how much a euro is worth for
yeah,
US dollars at
yeah,
the time because that was very relevant to the movie.
yeah. I wanted to take a trip to Germany and be like, that's where he died. No, I legitimately
And
I
then
was
go
just
back and then finish it.
well, it's one of those moments where you just like you just need a second because you're like because to me it was like that was the most impactful part of the movie was the off screen and then like exactly what you said they basically went and then they're like fine and then they ran inside. It's like a comedy at that point.
Yeah,
Um,
it's like it's like a farce of like the epic hero's death or
yeah,
whatever.
and that's I paused it going like because I basically went whoo and then I looked and it was like 48 minutes. I'm like I'm in. I'm like
Yeah.
where's this going? So that was not looking
Yeah.
up the euros or when the movie was made because I did that earlier. God damn. Well, how'd you find this movie, Matt? I was really curious about that.
It was on Amazon Prime, and I was like, it just hit me. I'm like, I have to watch this. Like, I just have to do it. And I didn't really
Yeah.
know much about going into it other than like the meme stuff.
Yeah.
But and then I was watching, I'm like, this movie is exhausting but brilliant.
Yeah.
As someone who's like fascinated by this period of history, I just think it's basically like perfectly portrays the morbidity and like the gray area of like the realism of what's like you feel like because like when you read like a history book about like what Hitler was what things are like in the bunker at that time, you get an idea of what it's like, but you don't really feel it. This movie lets you feel like you're literally in a point of history where you're just you may be like just a German soldier just like stuck in this bunker with everyone with nowhere else to go. And then speaking of like the soldiers, like how they get progressively more drunk as time goes on, and like respect for leaders becomes less frequent. Like people are like saluting less, and like no one really cares as things go on. And yeah, that's where I was going at that point. But
Yeah, they even stopped really like starting. They stopped the salute. They stopped basically going like Hail Hitler and kind of stuff like
Yeah.
that. It is like this fascinating like exploration of like humans at the end
yeah,
of like and like some who are aware of it and some like the one scene of the guy who the medic who tries to leave. He's like, can I get out of Berlin? There's nothing for me to do here. And he's like, no, you have to stay. And then he goes home and kills his family because he's like, we're gonna be
Yeah.
miserably
Oh,
killed
that
yeah.
scene
anyway.
was so messed up.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was messed
But
up.
it's-
I got legitimately angry during that part.
But that's the power of the movie is you recognize you're like, yeah, I get it. It's kind of like one of those things where it's like it's horrific to watch, but it's also you're like, what other out did he have? He's killed by the Soviets if he gets captured, like a lot of others were. His family's probably killed too. I mean, you saw the amount of carnage that was done to civilians.
Yeah.
He's aware that Hitler doesn't care about civilians. Even's like my family's like your family will be fine, and you're
Yeah.
like, it's just like it's one of those scenes that you just like step back and you're like, damn.
Yeah. I just want to get into two more like character arcs, I guess, before I want to talk about Eva Braun first because I'm very fascinated with that she's portrayed in this movie.
Yeah.
Do you guys know much about her?
Not really. No.
I don't know too much about her either. I just know that she was like the girlfriend for a long time of Hitler, and then eventual life towards the end, and that she's like relatively like naive to what was going on. But she's like almost like a sympathetic character in this, especially with her relationship with the secretary lady, the main
Yeah.
character. Like they have a lot of scenes where it's like character building for her. She's not like you have like the earlier scenes where she's kind of like delusional, like, oh, let's drink and party, like everything's fine, but
Yeah.
then everything's clearly not fine. But then you do like unravel some layers to her character. I mean, what do you guys think of her? I guess.
Mark.
Yeah, I mean, it's like she's almost portrayed as like this. She's like trapped in like this childlike mentality, like especially
Yeah.
like the very effective dancing party scenes where they're just
Yeah.
like the artillery's landing and she's like I want to dance, put on put on a song, I want to keep dancing, and it isn't until like one of the walls in that room get like literally blown to hell,
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
they go to the bunker.
Yeah.
It's it's like she's like one of the the most glaring not, I don't want to say like victims, but how do I say it? You can see the effect of the propaganda
Yeah.
of the Third Reich most exemplified in her, because she is so convinced that like this is the true way, and
Yeah.
but I guess it didn't work, so we got to die. So
Yeah,
let's
like
just
I can't
dance to
tell if
death.
she's like a strong character because of her lack of fear of dying, or if she's just so brainwashed and naive that
Yeah.
that's why she's not afraid of dying, because she just like it's really hard to pinpoint her character because like she's very like, because there's so many like sweaty like men that are like clearly afraid, but then later on, like even when she knows like things are not going to go well, she's writing her suicide letter and whatever, and she's talking to the secretary, she's like, oh, you can have this dress if you want. Like there's this weird calmness to her, and it's very mysterious, and I'd be interested, like I didn't look at any like interviews or whatever for this movie, but I can't really tell if it's strength on her part or if it's like just political propaganda, but she doesn't really come across as being as delusional as some of the other generals or as Goebbels and his wife. So it's difficult for you want to say something, Tyler?
Yeah, I don't want to like jump in and cut you up, but to me, she's like the one like main. She's like a villain in the movie to me. She's
Okay,
what
yeah.
she's like. She represents to me like the theme of like blissful or willfully or purposely ignorant, because there's a certain point where you're like, it's mysterious, but to me she recognizes, and to me, I don't know much about who she was. I don't actually know anything. When you were like, who's Eva Braun? I don't know anything about her, but to me she's like someone who is constantly going like, it's kind of the opposite of like ignorant. Youth does not mean ignorance, but I think she's fully aware of everything that's happening, but is purposely choosing to pretend like it's not. And to me, that makes her like a true villain character, because she's aware, she has influence. She's one of the few characters in the movie that has direct influence over the person who's doing it. And she's aware of what's happening. She could stop it, but instead she chooses to kind of be vapid almost and ignorant.
Yeah.
Like, hey, let's dance. And then you're right. It's kind of the idea of like, sometimes people have to be punched in the face to be woken up, but she's so like not ignorant, but purposely ignorant that even after getting blown up, she's still like, like, this is so great. Like, hey, can we go outside for a few minutes? Oh, it's a shame we can't go outside anymore. To me, she's
like there's a kind of like it's a really weird scene where they go out and it's like playing some nice music and they look at the monument and then
and they're like, all right, they're like, I guess we have to go in now. And you're just like, to me though, that's like, she's the character who I recognize, because Hitler is like a different entity. Like we can't like even begin to dissect who that is. To me, she's like the most realistic standard of like a real person. Is someone who has the power to make a change, but recognizes her stance and recognizes what's going on, and then actively does nothing and lets the suffering happen.
I would probably disagree, but this is from I don't know her background, I don't know her biography, but I don't think she's fully aware of what's going on, just like how the secretaries weren't at the time fully aware. Like she wouldn't have stopped it because she was one of the most firm believers of the vision, I guess. So I still believe that she's sort of in this like almost infancy stage of mentality of just like her outlook. Because it's like, I guess the way she'd probably view it is like, we got this little road bump we need to get over, but then it's going to be all, suns and gardens after that.
Yeah.
I can recognize, this stance on this is not like adamant for me. I can like, if you like, I bet you could probably convince me otherwise, that she's like the most ignorant character of all, like aware of what's going on. Like I just found her to be, she was one of those fascinating.
There's something.
I mean, yeah. there's a
go.
hint of evil. There's a hint of evil. There, I mean,
Yeah.
you can't deny that almost every single person in that base, is like evil manifested into reality. But yeah, I still think that she is largely ignorant, or at least that's how I perceive her portrayal in the film.
Yeah. One last point is that just for me personally, I just got something out of her performance that I found like there to be less ignorance than some of the other more blindly ignorant followers. Like it's just I think it just comes down to opinion at this point. But speaking of very blindly ignorant followers, Gobbles and the wife. So who people don't know, Gobbles was one of his chief PR people. Um,
Propaganda.
propaganda people, and obviously Gobbles' wife. They're very like high in the society right now. Like they're two like the most powerful people, and I think Hitler at the end said she's the strongest German woman he knows or something like that at the end. But the movie really like puts like the final exclamation point on blind loyalty to this figure with the children suicide scene. Talk me through your thoughts on that, you guys, because when I first saw that, I got angry a lot during this movie, but at this point, I'm like, you get this feeling of just pure hopelessness. Like, it's not even really anger. It's just that for me, it's just like this is just it. Like, this is just they're completely gone at this point. There's no redemption here. I want you talking through what you guys thought.
It is simply some of the darkest days of humanity.
Yeah.
Just put on the screen. I mean, just in a more broader sense, like the way that those scenes are presented, like that Nazi, I forget what his rank is, but when he blows up his whole family at the dinner table,
Yeah.
it's just so grim, and the film doesn't really make you pick sides. It's sort of, you're just like, wow, this happened. Like you're literally, the film places you like a fly on the wall, like in that room where Mrs. Goebbels like puts all the cyanide pills in her children's mouths. You're just like watching this slowly happening. You're getting the same frame on each single child as the pill is crushed into their mouth
by one.
Yes, yes. You're just like, you get every single angle of this, and and then she just walks out of the room, and it's like, yeah. And this is after like 2 hours of just straight claustrophobia. It is, and then that's like one of the smallest rooms in the bunker almost. It's so effective. To go back to that word, it's just so effective.
So Matt knows my one thing I don't like to watch in movies is kids dying. And I asked Matt, I was like, are the kids dying in this? And he went, just you wait. And I was like, fuck.
I said I'm playing the fifth. I said I'm not saying the kids do die. I'm also not saying the kids don't die.
Okay. And I was like, all right, that means a lot of kids die in the movie. I'm like, that's great. And as soon as they got into the bunker and it was like the chorus of kids, I was like waiting for the moment when I knew, because they're very like I was saying before, the director, I don't have the name on hand. He isn't subtle like in what he's doing, but we don't need subtlety in this. This is like actual.
This is a very unsubtle time of history.
It's a very unsubtle time. Like there's no like why beat around the bush. They were horrible, awful, brainwashed people who did a horrible, awful, like where you said the lowest point of humanity. And as soon as like those like they're like, we're just singing, we can't wait to meet the chancellor. And then he is
for Uncle Adolf.
Exactly. And then he's in the next room being like, we're gonna kill all the civilians, or all the civilians are gonna die. You're just waiting for like the beacon of innocence to be snuffed out by this gray world. And then as soon as you get to that scene where Goebbels, thank you, are like mixing the drink, they're like, how long will the effects be? At least like a few hours. And I'm like, and I just kept fast forwarding until it was over. I was like, no. And then it was over. And then you see the scene of her closing and walking out. And I was like, okay, I get it. Like you did it. You got me.
You have to watch the scene.
I'm fucking watching that scene. You can't get me to do that. Can't pay me enough to watch that scene. I'm good. Especially when I cut to one scene and one kid's like doesn't want to take it. I'm like, I hate you, Matt.
So, that wasn't the suicide scene. That was just to knock him out.
Yeah, I know, but it was still and then there was a suicide scene where she's like choking on air, and then it's going down. You're like, fuck, okay, whatever. Mm-hmm. I hate because
the oldest girl knows that something's up, and that's like the hard part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they go and then they play cards after, which is just crazy. But I mean, it's really nothing like you can't really analyze the scene because it's just because it's real life, like it happened, and it's just it's meant to just show you how hopelessly brainwashed people were, and potentially be warning signs for today. This is what happens when you subscribe to a political person or ideology so vehemently. You get nothing but this kind of stuff would happen. And yeah, and then they also have very anticlimactic deaths. They shoot each other. Well, Bobo shoots his wife, and then
off screen.
Yeah,
they shot him off screen,
and then let the fires on him, and then that's it.
That was a really great shot, by the way, of like the soldiers and then you hear the shot, and they're like, all right, and they just walk over and immediately
yeah,
burn the body.
They're just sitting there waiting for it to happen, and then it's very just like like step by step kind of thing. Yeah. And I mean, that's basically everything I wanted to say about Downfall. I just want to say that the movie just handles so many emotions really well. And then the one scene that kind of made me laugh was when that general who was coming in to report he was supposed to be executed, and then he goes, and then they go like, "Oh, he's like, all I was is defending the ground. What's going on?" And then the reporter goes, "I'll talk to Hitler." Comes back, you're the new general of the army, and he's like, "I wish you just killed me." Like, so there's like brief like absurdist humor in the movie as well, but never to the point where it's like taking you out. But I don't know. I think especially like, not to be all wheels in society, but in today's political climate, like a movie like this is so important because this shows you the repercussions of full allegiance to a political figure. And I don't know, this movie is brilliant. I think it's one of the most important movies you can watch, in my opinion.
I would say so too.
I would agree with that sentiment.
Yeah, I would agree, especially in our current political climate, and at least in America, that is. Yeah. You really can't.
Sorry.
Oh my goodness!
1 second.
Downfall.
Oh my God! Willow's is like, yes, go watch it. So yeah,
it's over.
That was a Matt. You made a damn good choice, I must say. I was kind of dreading it. I was like, fuck, 2.5 hour movie about grim shit, but I was like mesmerized.
Yeah.
All right. I don't feel like we need to say, do we recommend it? Because clearly, if we're all going here, like, this movie is really.
It's a movie, like, obviously you can, like, what's going to happen in the movie.
Yeah.
Unless you're like really unaware of historical events.
Yep.
But it's a movie that it transcends plot. It's just you are literally in a historical moment in time, a very critical historical moment in time, and it's like a warning basically, and
absolutely,
it's great.
So yeah, I think that brings us to the end.
I just think, can you imagine someone watching the movie being like, I wonder what's gonna happen?
I wonder is Hitler gonna make it? Where are they gonna go? Are they gonna get him? I do real quick before we go. It was very fascinating to be like, oh, all these Soviet guys, they died in like 2001, and I was like, Jesus, like we were all like,
yeah, there's like one German soldier in the movie. He's like an SS officer. Yeah, he lived to be like 90 something. Yeah, he just was like a car mechanic for like 16 years of his life.
And you're like, Jesus, like especially crazy. Like you see like early 2000s, and you're like, oh my God, because you just placed in such a different time period. I thought that was cool. Yeah, this was fun, guys. As you can see, I'm in a new location. I won't disclose where I'm in Los Angeles. It's so big. You guys can't find me. You don't know where I live. Actually, probably no one wants to find me anyways.
You don't want to put challenges on the internet like that.
I know, seriously. They
Los Angeles.
Yeah, I know, they know where I am. But yeah, I feel like we're not gonna reveal what we're doing next week or when we get back to it, because I want it to be a surprise, because it'll be fun.
Yes, for all three of you who are watching, it'll be a surprise for you.
We got good people watching. I'll read you some numbers when we get back. We're stop recording.
When we get back.
But yeah, that was fun, guys. Matt, excellent choice, as always. All right, guys. Thank you guys for watching. Do you guys have any final things to say?
I can't think of anything funny.
I can't think of anything clever that would be appropriate.
Yeah, and remember what you guys said.
Nothing.
Remember, check your sources. There you go.
Okay. What does that mean?
Check your whatever. That was,
you're not drinking a glass of water that will knock you out.
Yeah. Make sure before you drink, check what's in it.
And read your books.
And read your books.
I'm like behind Tyler.
I've been doing well. I've read like 4 of them.
He's lying. It's all cardboard.
I read 4 of them. I bought 20. So
I'm being good. I'm waiting. I'm reading 10, and then I'm gonna buy 4 more.
And then I'm gonna buy 20.
Yeah, and by 20, even it out. All right, guys. Thank you guys for watching, and I got the final word.